Celebrate your members' successes and failures. Like we highlight everything. Like, so when I see guys on the call with their children, I highlight that. When I see them on the next Monday call without their children, I'm like, where'd you put the babies? Why are the babies not with you? So they know, that it's welcome, you know. Also celebrate them choosing to get back up after a major stumble. Show them you care, yet be firm with your community's culture. I think the biggest thing people do, they're going through, they run and hide. And I always tell people, it's in that moment that you truly see your character and the character of those you're connected to. But when you run and hide, how do we help walk you through what you're growing through? We need you to fail in front of us, knowing that we all do it. It's a speed bump, it's a setback, it's a pothole. Okay, big deal. Get your car realigned and keep going. Or take the bus and keep going. And I think by consistently celebrating people, their ups, their downs, their struggles, their ability to bounce back, it keeps them understanding that this is the right space for them. We talked about growth. So the next one is challenge. Challenge your community to work, to grind, to grow, and to step up and lead. One of the things I challenge people to do is anything they see that can be done, they need to be the leader and do it. Now check in with the leadership for guidelines. We didn't see the gap, so you fill it. And I learned that from our CEO. At Microsoft, he actually is having a community talk today where he talks to the employees and we can go listen and ask him questions. And every time we would say, this is broken, he'd always say to us, fix it. And I would be mad because I'm like, you're the CEO, like you have the power to fix it. I already have a job. What was saying was, I don't even see that at my level. So I'm empowering you to fix it. And like every summer we have a hackathon where they give us 2 weeks off to work on any problem we see or bring up any innovation we want to add to the company's portfolio. So they really back that with their words because, it's paid time and you can go work on something different, go work at a different part of the company. So same thing in community. If someone reaches out to me and says, hey, Bernard, what can I help you with? I put them to work, Miss Karen. We need to grow our Instagram to 1,000 followers. What ideas do you have? What part of that can you do without me giving you the account information? And they tell me, and I'm like, cool, run the play. We'll reevaluate in 30 days to see if it needs to be changed. Start a nice little list and just, make sure it fits their skill sets. When they ask to help, employ them. One of the things I was sharing with Coach K when I was in Atlanta was, we delegate for life. It's one of the principles from the military. When they gave you a duty, it was your duty until you found someone to replace you. It had nothing to do with the leader. It was on you. So Latasha was at home over the New Year's holiday with her grandma. And I went to the mailbox and the mailbox was stuffed with mail. And I bring it in, I call her up. I'm like, babe, why is the mailbox full? She was like, Bernard, I'm out of town. I'm like, babe, but this is your responsibility. And she's like, Bernard, I'm out of town. I'm like, but you didn't say to me, Bernard, while I'm out of town, the mail. I was like, babe, I'm still washing your clothes. That's my responsibility. So I'm washing whatever, regardless if you're here or not. That's my responsibility. And it's delegated for life. It doesn't change until you replace yourself, And what you get from that is people who have extreme ownership over what they might have a skill set for. And then you're like, oh, okay. And now, again, many hands are now working the same ground. And now you have more reach. Because some people love the parts that you're like, I would rather not even look at that. But they love it. And when they ask to help, I employ them, fully employ them. And I check in, like, what else can I do to support what you're doing? It seems like it's working. Is there anything else I can add? And if they're like, yes, I listen, and if I can help, I help. And if I can't, let me think about it. Let me see who I can connect you with. So it allows them to now take part in the evolution of what is happening organically. Now, I don't think we have an issue here, but consistency. What do you utilize to show consistency to your community? Is it Facebook posts, Instagram posts, a weekly or monthly call? We have our pillar call every Saturday. And again, what we set as an example of consistency empowers our tribe and communities to also be consistent. So it's okay to change and evolve in real time in front of them. Do so while being consistent. You know, like, so when I told them, like, I will no longer be joining you on the morning calls, it wasn't me popping up every once in a while. It was, I'm not joining you. But the Monday calls, I'm making sure it's a robust, interactive, engaging opportunity for us to sit together, because that's the call. That's my pivot call as well. You know, so that's all they need to see is, wow, okay, so you don't do all this stuff, but the things you do, you're committed to. That's how life works. Because what we tend to do is we're like, we have access to all of this. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you burn out, you neglect career, you neglect family, you call yourself, well, I'm trying to grow, no one understands me. Well, you just tripping. You know, it's okay to start small and build up. You just dove in and now you drown in. You know, we want to show them how to, dip their toe in, find their area of expertise, find their areas being stretch and growth, and just be consistent there. Then after a month, 6 months, there's a natural shift to the order of things. And what we do, because we have accountability groups, every 60, 90, or 120 days, we rotate the members in the group. So that creates a natural growth, a natural shakeup, a natural rebonding of people within the group. So it allows a lot of the consistency to be transferred from person to person, from group to group. Now, something you clearly understand from a corporate culture eats strategy for breakfast. So we have to define our culture in detail. How do we greet each other? Like, anytime I'm on the call and Coach K is there, I remind him to do the great grind day. That's a part of the culture now. So he has to do it, and then this also allows us to know, do we talk politics here? Do we talk family here? Do we talk religion? Like, people need to know their guidelines so they know what not to do, which is super important, because they might want to talk about the president. And you're like, wait, time out. That's not what we do here. Mm-hmm. They might want to sell in the group and you're like, time out. That's not what we do here. So they understand the culture. Like, yes, you're building a network, and yes, there might be an opportunity to do business with someone beyond the group. But in this group, brotherhood is before business. And if what we see you doing is business first, you're going to have a hard conversation. It's probably going to be, very offensive to your soul. I just let them know, like, because we've had some people misabuse the access before, and we don't want to see that in the future. Then next is character. We know deep about this. Who you are is defined by your character, and so is your coaching community. This is why being who you really are matters. We don't have to be fancy. Like, I like wearing suits. That's what I wear. I've been challenged on it every which way, up and down. I'm like, this is who I am. When you give people the freedom to not be clones and to be themselves, they can truly stay real. They can really talk to the heart of the matter. Like I always share with men, I'm always upset to find out last. I'm like, why did you think it was hard to say you and your wife are not talking? Well, I stopped. If you had the answer, it would probably be working out. Put it out there, share it, let people know. Because whether it's prayer, whether it's a check-in call, whether it's a point to someone who is an expert or a book, we don't know how to surround you with brotherhood, to push you, to guide you, to be there for you if we don't know what's going on. So we need you to just share who you are, and it starts with being who you are. And not judging, because again, we have people in the community who still have women on the side. And again, that's their choice today. Show them through our example that there is another choice if they so choose to accept that. And if they want to accept that, we have tools, strategies, and people who will walk you forward to that spot. And I think it's scary when people first come into community because they're like so used to back to corporate. We don't have problems. It's just work. Mm-hmm. And I think a coaching community has to be a space where we don't dwell on the problems, but we don't run from them either. Mm. Then the next one would be connection. find creative ways to connect your community, from in-person meetups to member retreats to getting connected, both offline and online. Like whatever the plan is, like this year, we want to do a lot more regional meetups because we think it will be a little more streamlined to interact that way than having people fly across the country all the time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so then we want to also build it around what men think are manly things. So like we have a series that we're working on called Bullets and Brotherhood, where we go to a shooting range and we have the instructors teach us how to use firearms. And then afterwards we sit around and talk about what it means to protect your family at the highest level. And are you prepared? You know, so again, we have that connecting activity, but then we also have the dialogue and why it matters. You know, and then we have another one we're working on called Fishing and Fatherhood. Fishing is such a slow event, so a lot of time to talk, you know, but it gets people together who are in local areas. They, you know, they wear their branded stuff, they fish, they stay mic'd up, and they just have a dialogue around fatherhood, you know. And I think those things will bring a richer tradition to what we're doing and help people get connected in your non-typical ways, you know. So just whatever meetups or activities are natural for the people in your region, just think about those and really, you know, allow them to organically come together. Because the more touches, the more meets, the deeper the connection. Then the last one, I would say, was the hardest for me. Me and a couple people got into it, you know, on some calls about this. Caring for your tribe and community must be top priority. It's like, for me, like when you're running, like I'm not chasing you. Like I'm just like, you've made a decision. Mm-hmm. And I have 4 natural brothers, so I'm so used to men having conflict and still being united. Mm-hmm. You know, so I'm like, look, I don't like you today. Okay, cool. I'm still your brother. Next, move on. You know, you watching the game with me? Yeah, I'll be down to watch the game. Like it's just so natural. But a lot of these men do not have natural brothers. Mm-hmm. They have never done community with men, and this is terrifying for them. Like, you can yell at me and still care. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of what we do. And so I had to learn to empathize and put myself through their lenses. You know, like I have my dad in my life. A lot of men don't. So hearing a man's voice scares them. And they're men, so they don't want to show it, but they're a little terrified, you know, so they want to run. And it's because I'm so approachable that they come back and tell me. It's like, B, when you said that, it hurt my feelings. I was like, why didn't you just tell me? I mean, I would still hurt your feelings. I just wouldn't do it that way, you know? And they were like, oh, okay. Like, because we were trying to get to the root. Like one of the gentlemen, he didn't have a good relationship with his dad, so he wouldn't call him his dad. He'd call his dad by his first name. And for me, that would just bother my soul. So I said to him, look, you need to call your dad by dad or father. He's like, well, he didn't do anything. I'm like, stop. And this person was a pastor too. So I was like, look, you need to honor your father, period. I don't want to hear you're around it. And it took, you know, like we went at it. I wasn't budging. He wasn't budging. I was just telling him to do it. And then he finally did it. And it mattered so much more because he found out, you know, his dad is leaving the planet a lot sooner than they both envisioned. And I was like, what if you had wasted 2018 still being mad, still being a little cross versus doing that hard work? So it's that type of stuff where they know you care, you know, and you find ways to show them you care. Like it might be, and I like things like remembering birthdays and things like that. I think it's deeper sometimes. Maybe you remember a child's birthday or a special moment for them, you know, that's outside of the tradition, because, you know, a lot of things you're like, oh, well, I guess Facebook just told you it was my birthday, so you're saying happy birthday, versus you remembered something real about who they are. Now they're like, wow. And be okay with, you know, the evolution of the brand in the community. Mm-hmm. I said this to Coach in Atlanta. I was like, Coach, when you came to Seattle, I always knew who you were. You just had the wrong people around you. You didn't have a Jay Ross. You didn't have a Bernard Bergan. You didn't have a Coach Rice. You had who was there. No judgment to them, but they weren't willing to humble themselves, be trained, and also be led. And you had to be okay. And like for me, like I'm not competing with anybody. Right. And I'm not fighting anybody, jockeying. That's just not in my DNA. So I'm like, when they are there, I'm like, I can't be there because I don't want to be around them. Nothing to do with you, but I don't want to be around them. And when they eventually left, then it was like, okay, now I can step in and do more. And I think we have to be okay with letting the layers peel back, letting the people come and go.
Right.
And for community at times, we feel, man, why did they leave? And I'm like, my challenge is, why didn't they leave sooner? Because if we're being fake, people think we are something that we're not, and then they stay longer. So I'm like, they need to know who you are immediately so they know if they want to be around you, you know? Yeah, and the biggest thing is having fun. The second you're like, this isn't fun, really self-assess and ask yourself what would make it fun for you. Because when you're having fun, you're having a great time, the attraction and growing it becomes so organic because it's fun.
Right.
Don't wait till the seventh time you're like, this is not fun anymore. The first time it's not fun, make whatever adjustment. So you get back to a place of, man, this was great. When I don't say this was a great call, I'm like pinging everybody. How do we improve? How do we improve? They're like, it was great. It wasn't great for me. How do we improve? How do we improve? How do we improve? And they start giving feedback and ideas. All right. That was it. And I think you guys are on the right path. I like that you're adding guests. The one thing I would challenge, because we had to challenge it with our social, and it was hard because our culture wasn't the same. But I did a social media audit on my personal social and also the G-Men one. And one of the things they said was, when people look at your G-Men social, they see y'all, but they don't see themselves. And that was when I first started using other men's photos from like Getty's stock photos and stuff like that. Because again, when men was looking in, they would see us, the people who are current G-Men, but they wouldn't see anyone but us. If people look in right now, they would still say G-Men is an urban organization. And it's not. It's an organization for everyone who's a man who wants to join and grow. Right. But that's what the brand at times speaks to.
Right.
So I'm slowly starting to just add different ideals in the branding and marketing. So when people look at it, they're like, oh, it's owned by a Black person, obviously, but it's not, they're not excluding us. And I think the idea is more like an NBA team. You know, like anyone's welcome to play if they're the best. You know, the NBA tends to have a lot of people from our community, but because they're the best, not because they're from our community. And I want that to be a part of the G-Men culture going forward. Like, you're welcome. It's not just people from my natural community. It's everyone, if you can thrive and survive in this environment. You know, so, and I don't know what that would mean for the G-Women brand. You know, when they said that to me, it resonated because I was like, yeah, it kind of almost looks like a fraternity. You know, you're like, well, I guess I can't join this fraternity.
Right.
Growing pains for me. But what I do have is I have a marketing team, because I own a media company. So I have a marketing team. So whenever we have direction, I can just create content and create, memes and ideas around what we want to release. And that gave me a slight advantage. And I think we started to build a momentum, but I don't feel like we have community on the ground yet. Like we don't have enough engagement.
Mhm.
So I'm still working to see how do we take a lot of our internal conversations that don't have, PII, personal information, and move them external so that men and other people can hear how men are talking, sharing, growing, and being challenged to change. And I think that's where we really have an advantage, because like when I tried the live stream on Facebook of the Monday call, it was just a try. But then people started saying, man, thank you for streaming every Monday. Man, we really need this content. And I'm always like, so why don't you join? But what hit me was I'm advertising, and they would not even know about G-Men without the lives. So this is, touch one. And maybe at touch seven, the seventh time they interact with the brand or someone from G-Men, they make the decision to join at that point. At one point I was going to stop, and someone messaged me and was like, no, that's your advertising. It's like, where else are you guys advertising? And I was like, oh, we're not. And he was like, well, that's your advertising. Like, people join, they look, some stay, some don't, some comment, some don't. But now that gets them one step closer to making the decision to join. It's not that hard, just because, you just screen share to Facebook. But the engagement piece can be a bit tricky, because sometimes I forget to like go follow up and reply to the comments and things like that. Because that's where you really get the reach. People say, hey, how do I join? Or, man, tell me more. And if you don't respond at some point, you could lose that interest. Right. But I think when people see that there is a robust community of men working to do life better, I think it's attractive. And one of the strategies that you guys can try that we're going to start to implement is, like if you have a guest after the call, maybe you could do a quick IG live recap where you can invite the guest to the live. So it'll be like the G-Men Worldwide IG and then the guest IG. And then we do a recap of the call. So how do you feel the call went? What were your top 3 takeaways? What did you love about interacting with the community? Because that's another way of getting the message beyond, your normal borders. And that's for me, like the exciting part of this process. I'm like, okay, we have the positivity, we have the content, we have the discipline, we have the core for it. But how do we get it to be so attractive to people? Because I have 4 brothers, not one of them joined. They all know about it. They like comment, retweet, all that stuff. And, so I'm like, so what more can we do so people are so enticed